Welcome back to the channel, my YouTube family. How are you doing today? We're back in the Division 2 with more gear guides for you, and today we are going to show you a gear build that has an insane fire rate. As you can see, it just absolutely melts enemies, and if you're a solo PvE player, this might be worth checking out. Should be good. Let's do it. Before we get started today, thank you so much for all the support on the last two videos that we put out. The first one was explaining just the basics of gear if you're new to the game or have only just started playing it and are a reasonable way in. And the second one, I just shared a build with you which is much more around kind of later part of the game once you've done the main campaign and you're looking around for some buffs. Today we are going to go with quite a different gear build, but a lot of fun. So if you are a solo PvE player, this might be worth a look. Now, so much Division 2 content on the channel, so if you're enjoying that and you want to see more and you're not subscribed, consider subscribing to the channel. We've got tons and tons of Division 2 content, plus we have lots of different FPS and third-party shooters for you to check out, as well as new games and all the rest of it. So if you're not subscribed, do yourself a favour, hit the red button, put the bell notification on, and you won't miss a minute. So what are we going to look at today? Well, we are going to look at the Striker Battle Gear set, predominantly in this build. I've been playing around with some iterations of this. I've got to tell you that this takes a little bit of finessing, but boy oh boy, as you're seeing with footage in the background, this build absolutely melts players. And so there's a few things that I'd suggest you have for this build that will keep you kind of busy and keep you on point and have you absolutely obliterating the competition. So as we're doing a little bit of looting, let's just hop over to my character build and I'll walk you through what I suggest you can do to make this a fantastic and fun build. So here is the build that I've come up with. I've been playing around with different variations of this, but this is the one I've kind of landed on for now. So let's start off with the weapons and then we'll work our way through this. What I suggest is you look for something that has a very high fire rate. This is the Burnout, which I think is the FAMAS, if I'm not wrong. Obviously you want to find one that's got a high fire rate. You can see the RPM on this is 1035, and yeah, you can play around with the attributes and the core attributes and try and get the best version of this gun as you can. But yeah, I'd suggest something like the FAMAS would be a good starting point. And also I've got the Vector, and you can see that's got an RPM of 1380. Absolute beast of a weapon. I've gone for more of an accuracy build. You probably don't need to do that, and I'll show you why in a second, but probably critical hit damage, critical hit chance, or go for accuracy. Up to you how you want to build your weapon. Certainly with the Vector, I've gone much more for make sure I've got the extra rounds in both guns. Extra rounds, I love extra rounds because you are going to burn through ammunition like it's going out of style in this build. So there you go, we got the perfect killer on. Killing an enemy with critical hit grants 50% critical damage for 10 seconds. So if you really want to buff up your critical hits and your critical hit damage, you could play around with the attachments on the Vector. This of course is the Dark Winter Vector. A normal Vector is fine. Whatever, you're more worried about that RPM than anything else. And on the Burnout, on the FAMAS, we've got perfectly on empty. Reloading from empty grants 40% weapon handling for 10 seconds. So up to you how you build these guns. I'm just showing you what I'm using for this build, and it'll become obvious why I'm using these two in a minute. I've tried various kind of selections here. The key for me is I'll go again with the Ninja Bike Messenger backpack, only because it gives me extra buffs and I don't have to put 3 or 4 pieces on. So I've gone in this build, I've gone with the Hunter's Fury, but I have been playing around with the Heartbreaker in this build, and I also got this attack vector mask, which I've been playing around with. But for now, we'll go with Hunter's Fury. And the reason I want to go with Hunter's Fury, number one, is SMG damage. But the most important is that armor on kill, health on kill buff that it gives you. For my body armor, I've again gone with Hunter's Fury. 2 pieces of Hunter's Fury, because I've got that backpack on it, counts it as 3, and that's why I get the shotguns, SMG damage, and armor on kill, health on kill. Now, if you wanted to run a shotgun with this build, you could, but there really isn't any point, because that's not why we're running Striker, and you'll see why we're running Striker in a bit. If you wanted to go with Heartbreaker, obviously that's going to give you assault rifle and LMG damage, but there is a caveat to that, and that is about your survivability, and I'll talk about that in a bit. So onto the Striker's gear and why I'm running Striker's gear. So you can see with 2 pieces it gives you 15% weapon handling, which keeps your vector on point, or your fast firing guns on point, and a little bit more accurate than you would normally get. But then on top of that, you get a 15% buff to your rate of fire. And given that the FAMAS and the Vector are already very quick firing guns, you can imagine this just melts enemies really, really quick. And that's what we rely on. Now, because I've got 3 pieces of Striker battle gear on, also get that 4-piece buff, which is Striker's Gamble. Weapon hits increase total weapon damage by 0.65%, stacking up to 100 times. 1 stack lost per second between 0 and 50 stacks. 2 stacks lost per between 50 and 100. So you have to use it or you lose it. Now, I do want a Striker's battle gear body armor. I haven't been able to farm that yet, because that gives me a further buff to that weapon damage, and that really would be another level of insanity for this build. But again, we have the Striker's knee pad, and again weapon damage on that one, and the gloves, weapon damage, weapon handling. So that's what I'm running. This is just insane. It's insane the level of fire rate that you get. The only problem is the survivability that we showed you in the last build, where you regen in armor, is not there in this build, unfortunately. So you have to build something in for your survivability to regenerate your armor, and you might consider putting armor regen on some of these pieces. Or what I've done is I rely on my drone, and my drone, I've got the fixer drone, which regenerates my armor over time. So you can see I've got a tier 2, 40% armor repair, 140% health. So I just push that up, and when I get in trouble, I send that up and it regenerates my armor. And that's the only downside, I think, to this build over the build I showed you last week, is that I got used to kind of ducking into cover and getting my health and armor to regen, and now I haven't got that, so I have to use the drone to compensate. Couple other things I'd like to show you in this build, and that is the fact that you can mod these slots, and you should mod these slots. Generally I go for armor on kill, but up to you what you want to use. There's obviously I've got a whole lot of things that I can use. Protection from elites is pretty good, just depends what you're doing. Probably put armor on kill for that one, and on this one what I'll probably do here is put some protection for from elites on this one. See that one, protection from elites, and then that's a further buff that you can add, and I'm not sure if anybody showed you that before, that you can actually add those to your face mask and your body armor, and you get an even further buff. If you're not running the ninja backpack, you may also be able to put extra buffs on your backpack. So I just want to quickly talk about that survivability again, and you're looking at the footage and you're seeing me melting enemies real quick, and you're asking, well, you're talking about survivability G4, but you're melting enemies real quick, so you're getting that armor on kill and you're getting that health on kill. With some of the more difficult and named, the elite enemies, the gold ones, and even some of the purple ones, depending on the situation you're in, it can take some time to take them down. You're going to suffer sometimes from getting your armor taken down real quick. And so yeah, that buff from Hunter's Fury does work, but there are certain situations where you're going to need that fixer drone, or even a hive might be appropriate just to regen your health and your armor at times. What I found with running this build is I was getting way ahead of myself. I was getting very, very aggressive. You're going to suffer sometimes from getting your armor taken down real quick. And so yeah, that buff from Hunter's Fury does work, but there are certain situations where you're going to need that fixer drone, or even a hive might be appropriate just to regen your health and your armor at times. What I found with running this build is I was getting way ahead of myself. I was getting very, very aggressive, and yeah, sometimes it kind of was to my detriment, where I just got a bit too excited and got killed quickly. So just be aware of that. It takes a little bit of adjusting to this build, and my suggestion is that you go out and you pick some areas in on the map that you're comfortable with, and just run the guide and tweak it. Of course, if you've got any suggestions what I might run apart from the Hunter's Fury, please let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear if you've run strikers and how you've run strikers in the past, and maybe if you can make some suggestions. I would love that. That is the build I had for you this week. Like I said, it's a huge amount of fun. Insane time to kill. You just keep an eye on your survivability and your armor regen, but if you do that, you should have a huge amount of fun with this build, and you're just going to absolutely decimate enemies. I have been running around all over the place trialing this build, and it has been absolutely crazy. So, as I said earlier, if you've got any suggestions how I can improve this build, I'd love to hear from you. If there are any other builds that you think I should look at, also let me know down in the comments below. And if there's anything that you do want me to cover on the Division 2 that I haven't already, and check out my my playlist. There's lots of tips and tricks and gameplay and all kinds of stuff. If there's something that you're struggling with, let me know, and I will do my best to either answer your questions, or I might even put a video together to help you. Thanks for the support as ever, and we'll catch you next time on the channel. See ya.